Playfly finals, Tufts versus UFV. Um, we didn't stream game one, but we'll be heading into game two shortly. And yeah, Tufts is currently 1-0 up, as we should head into draft in a second. Okay. Um, we may be a second as we restart the draft, but okay, we are heading in a bit, I believe. Cool. Awesome. And we are heading into draft, and we do get into draft now. We see Tufts coming out with the Oriana Hecarim ban. This is the same as we see from as from game one. Actually, mostly the same. UFV still banning Galio, and Tufts still banning Jinx. We do also see uh, so far it's just the Thresh ban missing. We'll see if UFV does something different, tries to ban out one of Tufts' picks from game one, but so far we see the exact same bans as we saw earlier. Gwen is going to be the ban. That was something that did come out game one, so that's definitely a pretty spooky pick, and especially if UFV wants to pick a tank in the top lane. Tufts does lock in the Ashe. Definitely a strong pick right now. Can pump out that sustained DPS, and provide that setup with the Ashe arrows. If he is going to respond with a Varus, another one of these on-hit characters, I imagine this is going to be on-hit and not lethality Varus. As we see what they end up picking for, I imagine support is going, or jungle is going to be coming out next. And it is going to be the Sejuani. It's going to provide some of that consistent utility, and going to overall be a relatively consistent pick. Yeah, Huff's going to pick up. It looked like Tom Kench for a second, which is definitely a very powerful support pick. It doesn't seem like it's going to go top, but it's going to be the Lilia instead, which is a jungler that can clear really fast and provide a lot of that late game utility um, with the sleeps in team fights, and overall just does a lot of damage, has a lot of that mobility, especially after building things like Cosmic Drive, and yeah, and it is actually going to be not going to be the Melio, it is going to be the Tom Kench. They both provide some of that similar utility against Sejuani Ultimate and Varus Ultimate, Melio being able to cleanse them, and Tom Kench can just eat the ADC. And it seems like Tufts is going to prefer that Devour protection for the Ashe, which makes a lot of sense. Tom Kench is also just something that's really strong in the support role right now. Um, just has a very consistent lane and provides some of that tankiness in once you get later into the game. Janna is going to be the response for UFV. I'm not entirely sure if that's some kind of counter pick or for the Tom Kench, because she can channel the tornado during the W, or something else, because aside from Tom Kench, it doesn't really seem like there's anyone who super needs to go in on the side of Tufts. I think Tufts would be happy staying back, allowing the Lilia and Ashe to do their thing, slow the enemy team, that sort of thing. On that note, we do see Pantheon and Volibear bans. Most likely, those are both top bans. Alawi also getting banned. This does seem to be something more like a pocket pick, but we will see what they end up picking instead. Yone also taken off of the table. A lot of these powerful AD top laners are now no longer available. We'll see what they end up going towards instead. UFV taking a bit to deliberate, but it is going to be Garen actually. That's definitely something that's really interesting. Garen is a pretty feast or famine champion. I'll be really interested to see if he ends up going the phase rush crit Garen build or building full and ends up opting towards full tank. I do think UFE does definitely need some kind of AP in the mid lane, or else they risk an all AD comp with just the Varus passive and some minor damage from Janna and Sejuani. But Jace ends up getting locked in, but it doesn't seem like that's actually going to be going against the Garen. It looks like that's going to be mid instead, and with the Mordekaiser locked in top lane. These are definitely two very stat checky bruiser top laners, and so it really is just going to be a question of who manages to get ahead in this early game. And so far, we've seen Tufts top laner really pull it out, so I think this top lane matchup is going to be something to keep an eye on, especially since we saw this Gwen ban, which they ended up playing in game one. So clearly top lane is a lane that both teams are looking towards, as the Rise is locked in for the mid lane of UFV. Will provide some of that sustained AP damage for sure. We'll see how well it does into this chase. Definitely not a champion that we see too often right now, but we'll see how they end up faring. We will take a quick break as we load into game, and we will see you in a bit. to Summoner's Rift for Game 2. As we load in, there are a couple of things that we want to probably keep an eye on. The Garen is coming in with the Phase Rush, so this may be a more aggressive offensive Garen than what we're maybe used to seeing. Generally speaking, you can rush Tiamat or Strikebreaker to instantly proc Phase Rush or proc it faster. Is something that's pretty common. Something else that is pretty relevant to see is that there's both ADCs have cleanse. So which will be very helpful for stuff like Sejuani ulti, Ash arrows, stuff like that, as we see UFV trying to do a quick invade to drop a ward on the Raptor's pit, get a little bit of info on the jungler's pathing, and Tufts doing the same actually on the other side of the map. So both junglers going to be spotted on their first clears. And I believe both teams did have vision of that heading over. Aside from that, it's also we'll also see that the Tahm Kench is going for the Guardian and not the Comet, so a bit less of a poke pressure lane, and it will be able to provide a little bit more of that protection for their ADC. Aside from that, nothing too spectacular, nothing too strange. Tufts is able to get the level 2, or should be able to get the level 2 a bit earlier, giving them the ability to push into that lane. But outside of that, just a little bit of trading across the map. Mordekaiser is going to be able to push Garen back, especially level 1, when Garen doesn't have access to the Judgment, to the spin. And Tufts' bot lane also pushing in. So far, Tufts being able to grab some of that early pressure, but should not end up resulting in much. We do actually see an early gank, but the sidestep of the Arctic Assault means that the stun ends up proccing a little bit late, and it's not going to end up picking up the kill. A really nice sidestep from the top laner of Tufts, dodging the Arctic Assault, and I mean, that's pretty instrumental. You avoid the CC and also prevent both Sejuani and Garen from getting a couple of those extra auto attacks to get the permafrost going down earlier. So a pretty crucial sidestep, and allows Tufts' top laner to stay in the game. No summoners burnt either. As we quickly pan over to the Jace, missing quite a few minions. A little bit of trading. I think just the bot lane posturing to see if they're able to contest the Scuttle Crab, which isn't going to happen. We'll be interested to see if the Tufts jungler ends up walking towards that top side to try and double crab the Sejuani. Because that would be a pretty big denial of resources if it does manage to happen, but... Oh, wow, actually, we didn't even get to see this, but in the mid lane, Ryze actually takes out the Jace for First Blood. And they're actually pretty much full health after the exchange too, so I'm pretty curious what happened. But that's going to be a big win for the mid laner of UFV. They're going to be able to... They're now almost 600 gold up. You're going to get an experience advantage. I mean, that's a pretty big kill, to be honest, and it's a solo kill too. Across the map, actually, Tufts falling behind ever so slightly, with mostly just the jungler that is behind a bit. But that's also kind of to be expected with this Lilia into Sejuani matchup. We do expect the Lilia to be able to clear just a little bit faster. Although so far the Sejuani was able to make that first early gank onto the top lane. Yeah, and we can see that. I mean, I don't think the Rise is back yet either, so. And yeah, sitting on 1300 gold, so once they back, they're going to be able to really make a difference in those trades. As we see a little bit of trading going on top lane, we can see the strength of that phase rush. Garen just able to spin right out of any kind of conflict, but Mordekaiser still getting a good amount of damage. Nonetheless, Sejuani being spotted out, not quite able to start up the Void Grubs, and so even though it's on Rift Herald, because of the advantage that Mordekaiser has in the lane, they're able to secure at least 1 or 2 Void Grubs. And I don't think, and it doesn't look like Sejuani is going to try and contest at all, as she heads down towards that bottom jungle. Looks like she's going to try and contest try and trade at least the Hextech Dragon for the Void Grubs. As we see Rise hovering down, trying to see if there's any kind of possibility for a Realm Warp, but Tufts' bot lane backing off as showing enough respect for the missing Rise, and so UFV will have to settle for the Hextech Dragon. To be honest, actually not the dragon that you would really hope to see, because it means that there's going to be no Hextech Soul this game. But still, a Dragon for Grubs trade is pretty standard, what you would expect. And it also means that there's going to be the possibility of a little bit of fighting over the next Void Grubs. Tufts actually managing to claw back a lot of the lead that they had lost in that early game from the early kill. They're now 200 gold up. I think especially in this top lane, Mordekaiser coming back with the Dark Seal, as actually Lilia's hit 6 here. She does have the Lilting Lullaby, but the Realm Warp is enough to prevent any further aggression. Flash burn from the Sejuani, and that's a summoner gotten pretty much for free. Actually, Death Realm also used, but I mean, Garen can just run under tower, pops the thumbs up emote, knows that Mordekaiser can't do anything anymore once the once Garen is under tower, and just walks away. Oh wow, an aggressive flash forward, forcing out the flash from the Janna as well. Aggression happening across the map, and I think it's actually not too bad that the Ashe flashes forward, because the Tahm Kench is going to hit 6 soon and provide a lot of that extra survivability, and especially because the Tahm Kench still has the flash of their own. That is going to make the Ashe feel a lot more safe and be a lot more willing to trade that summoner for summoner exchange. But now, after all of that aggression, we reach a little bit of a lull state as Rise finally backs to spend their 2,500 gold, so we'll have to keep an eye on what they manage to pick up from this back. Oh, actually deciding not to back, gonna continue farming, maybe hoping to get a full item on that first back. As we see the Garen, once again, proccing that phase rush to run away. We also do see the Stride Breaker, or the Tiamat, and the Dagger, which is going to build into a Stride Breaker. As Rise finally backs, buys their Rod of Ages, so that is going to be a full item. The first in the game, actually, to reach their full item, as they do not quite have the teleport cooldown to make it back in time. They just get it right now, and they should be able to pick up that whole wave. So a big advantage for mid lane. Aside from that, though, not looking too hot across the map. Both top and jungle with a 20 CS advantage in favor of Tufts, and bot lane is still relatively even. Once again, popping the Death Realm here. A bit of an anti-synergy, as Lilia is just kind of sitting here waiting for that Garen to pop out, but it should be enough to pick up the kill anyways. Rise is here, but I don't imagine they should be able to make any kind of difference. Lilting Lullaby popped, but it does end up triggering under the tower, so no threat towards that Ryze. Ryze just running up to collect the wave, as Sejuani collects the wave in the mid lane. Either way, a really good kill for the Mordekaiser, because, I mean, this Mordekaiser's already been doing so well in lane, getting that CS lead, coming up towards that Rylai's Crystal Scepter now as well, which is going to be a big spike, despite the slow resistance that Phase Rush gives. Definitely going to be pretty spooky, and that kill also means that Tufts is able to secure the second Void Grubs. So that's going to be 6 Void Grubs going over to Tufts, and especially with how much pressure this Mordekaiser is putting onto the Garen, that's going to be pretty scary for the top lane. I would not be surprised if the top lane tower ends up falling sometime soon. As we say that, we do see a brief lane swap. I don't think this will be permanent. I think just to allow each lane to get a little bit more farm. But actually, the Ryze ends up just solo killing the Mordekaiser. Lilia shows up, but isn't able to do anything. And that's just another straight-up solo kill for the Ryze. I mean, the mid laner of UFV doing a phenomenal job so far in this game. Definitely, I mean, having the one-item advantage does help, but sitting on the Rod and the Lost Chapter now as well, but able to pick up these kills, being able to pick up these kills is really big for UFV. They are still down about 1,000 gold, and having 6 Void Grubs over to Tufts definitely doesn't help either, but it is a small advantage for the Ryze, who I think we're going to have our eyes on once we get towards that, the later stages of this game, once we head towards this mid-game. Definitely going to be very scary for a lot of these objective contests, as Tufts and UFV fighting over vision just a little bit as this Cloud Drake spawns. This does look like it's going to be a full contest. All 4 members, aside from the Ryze and the Mordekaiser, of each team are heading down. Neither top laner, or quote-unquote top laner, now that this Ryze is in the top lane, has teleport, which means it's going to be pretty hard for UFV to fight this, because their Ryze is their only advantage member, as the Varus actually backs. And it looks like they're not actually going to start this up just yet, but when a fight does break out over this dragon, which I imagine will happen, it's going to be a lot harder for UFV to contest, because their Fed member Ryze just won't be there, right? Not without the TP, or at least not without walking all the way down to get in range of Realmore. Once again, Tufts and UFV just fighting over vision a little bit, as the Lilia is actually headed up towards that top side, so maybe it's going to be a, looks like a gank actually, but the Mordekaiser's really low on HP, so I'm not entirely sure. Flashing in, gets the Lilting Lullaby, this should cancel the Realm Warp, it does, and even though the Mordekaiser's 1 HP doesn't quite make it out alive, but the shutdown does go over to Lilia, and the Garen does invest the teleport, flashing forward, looking to get the kill with that phase rush, pops the ultimate, does grab it, so it's going to be a 2-for-1 in favor of UFV, flashes the Mastery as well, and I think the big thing there is also that UFV does grab the Cloud Drake and all of the Chaos, so it's a 2-for-1 in favor of UFV, and they get the objective, so wins across the map for them. And I mean, it just looked really risky with how low HP the Mordekaiser was at the start of that gank, and it does end up biting them for it. So more big advantages for the mid laner of UFV, and an extra kill to get the Garen back in the game a little bit. Exactly what you want to see. But now this the Jen is getting slowed, has to flash away from the abyssal dive of the Tahm Kench, continues to get slowed. 2 more autos would do it, but not quite able to get in range. Janna dropped very, very low, forced to burn flash, but does not end up giving up her life. Rise also hovering down, trying to see if they can get into Realm Warp range, but they don't even have it, so it's actually just for a little bit of vision. As the Janna is forced back, Tufts' bot lane continuing to get a little bit more pressure with the Ashe and Tahm Kench, who is building up towards that Heartsteel. So definitely still a very even lane, but still looking pretty good for Tufts as the gold advantage kind of evens out. I do want to see Tufts try and make a little bit more use of their Void Grubs, as all three topside members of both teams crowd around this Rift Herald. It does look like UFV are going to be the ones to start it first, popping the eye, and Tufts does not look like they want to contest that at all, so it's going to be the Rift Herald given over for free, more or less. Yep, as Sejuani picks it up. Once again, going forward with the Abyssal Dive from the Tahm Kench, more arrows going over, one auto away, not quite able to pick up the kill once again, but more flashes forced out, and also the, oh wow, actually, Jace coming in from behind, going in onto the Varus, but isn't quite able to pick up the kill, and now Rise has arrived with Realm Warp, and picks up the kill in response. Just a bit of a botched, engagement from the Jace. They were there alone, and while Jace was trying to fight the Varus and Janna, Tufts does manage to pick up the tower, which is going to be pretty big for them. But a bit of an unfortunate engagement from the Jace, and who is going to be even more behind now. One item to the 2 of Rise, the completed Seraph, 7 stacks on the Rod of Ages. This Rise is going to be a menace. 170 CS as well, farming it up very well. So it's really just going to be all eyes on Rise in this mid game. Ooh, a bit of good trading over from Mordekaiser onto the Garen, but once again, has the phase rush, can just walk their way out. No harm, no foul. So we are headed right back into somewhat of a lull state. No objectives are going to be on the map for a little bit longer. Another 2 minutes another minute, sorry, before the Infernal Drake spawns. And then obviously Baron spawns in 2 minutes, which I don't imagine either team is going to be super eager to start up. But with that bot tower down, Tufts' bot lane heads into the mid lane, as both teams should be starting to set up for this third Infernal Drake. I definitely do think it would be in Tufts' best interest to contest this. Since another Drake puts UFV onto Soul Point. The arrow fired out. This does land onto the Rise. A nice flash to get the knockback onto the Rise, but Garen TPing in forces the flash out of the Ashe, and all it gets them is a good chunk of Rise's health bar. Rise does still have TP, so can TP back right back into the fight. So it's actually flash burned from both Ashe and Jace from the side of Tufts for just the flash and TP from the Rise. Flash, TP from the Rise, and TP from the Garen. So in terms of the immediate fight, it's actually going to be an advantage towards UFV, especially because this Mordekaiser doesn't have TP either, but it does look like Garen's answering to catch the wave, who also does not have TP, so neither top laner will be at the fight. But yeah, once again, Rise TP's back to lane, building towards that Zhanya as it looks like, and is going to be very, very scary. Wow, actually, Garen running forward, Death Realm popped, but the Garen ulti is just too much damage as Fright breaks out towards that Dragon fight as Dragon as well, which it looks like UFV are having a very good time in. They take down the jungler, take down the support, and that is going to be Soul Point over to UFV with almost no contest. And Tufts is really rapidly falling behind in this game, even if the gold lead does not reflect it. Garen now able to take out that tower, bringing some of that money back in favor of UFV, as once again, this Rise is going to be really, really scary, and the Rift Herald hasn't even been dropped yet, so now that the mid lane outer tower has dropped pretty low, Sejuani can just go in and break that. And that's going to be even more standing gold headed over to the pockets of UFV, especially, and it'd be especially good if they can get that into the pockets of the Rise. Ooh, Tornado lands, and that's actually going to be the root out from the Rise as well. So much damage, but the Devour is there to save the Ashe's life. Good little engagement from the side of UFV as the Lilia goes onto the Jan a little bit. Arrow forced shot out as well. The Abyssal Dive does land, and it's going to be a kill going over back to the side of Tufts, but Tonken's not able to activate the Thick Skin in time to get the shield, so it does end up going down. It's a trade 1-for-1, support for support, as Sejuani does do exactly what I mentioned earlier, pops down that Rift Herald mid lane, and should just be able to get that tower with the charge. Does end up getting it, isn't going to stay for anything more, as the Rift Herald should be able to get cleared out relatively easily. Although actually no, Garen does go in for a second charge, is going to get it. Lilia should be able to grab the Rift Herald with no problem, but that's more damage onto the inner mid tower. And UFV now with a 1,000 gold advantage. Looking pretty good for them, honestly. 6 kills their lead. Soul Point. Infernal Drake is definitely a very, very strong one as well, so everything looking up for them. The Rise is almost done with their Zhanya, Seeker's Arm Guard, and that Needlessly Lord Rod complete. And I mean, what else do they really want, right? The Rise is going to be their big damage carry. And even if the rest of their team is a little bit behind, which they aren't even anymore, Garen and Varus now both with bounties, as actually the Ashe just gets killed in the mid lane. That's pretty big. I think Ashe is probably one of their best chances to be able to really fight, continue fighting, and that's actually just going to be a Baron going over to UFV. Yeah, I mean, Tufts here to contest, but it's going to be a 3v4 with Garen being able to come in from behind. This is a really hard fight. Health bars are low from the side of UFV, but the Lilia already down, as Sejuani also down from the side of UFV, so kills going over towards either side, but it does look like UFV are having the advantage here. Trading one member for 3 on the side of Tufts, and I mean, that was a 3v5, really. I mean, I think, honestly, it's incredible that they even managed to get 1 kill. They do manage to grab, and, oh, actually, with the TP, Jace isn't even able to grab the inner tower on the side lane, so, I mean, Tufts just losing out across the board. UFV now 4,000 gold in the advantage. That's exactly what they wanted. He's now 3 items with a Baron buff. They should be able to just push in across the map, and once this dragon comes up in a minute and a half, it's really going to Tufts is really just going to need a miracle in order to win out the fight. Like, pretty much every member of UFV other than the jungler is going to be at a gold advantage, and I mean, there's not a lot that Tufts can do here. Yeah, 3,000 advantage even in favor of this Rise. Like, definitely the strongest member in the game right now. 12,000 gold. Grabs that solo inner tower gold as well for them. And it's not looking good, to be honest. TPing in now with the Realm Orb, not actually going to end up using it. And a little bit of anti-synergy as well. The Death Realm allowing Rise to dodge the Ashe Arrow, but it's not going to be enough. Jace does manage to grab the shutdown, force the flash out after the Sejuani arrives, but Tufts is now here to collapse on it, and it's a 2v4 in favor of them right now. And they are just going to be able to pick up all of the kills. A little bit of an overextension from UFV, as Tufts is just able to get there first. And it's 1 for 3 in favor of Tufts. Jace, now with the bounty, does have a bounty of their own. That's 1,000 gold, I would imagine, in favor of Tufts, and they should just be able to grab this third dragons, denying the soul at least for another 5 minutes. And that's a really, really big win for them. Tufts grabbing the dragon, grabbing the mid lane outer tower as well. It's actually just the Tahm Kench soloing that. No one there to contest other than the Janna, so big wins from Tufts across the board. And that's exactly what they needed to come back into this game. Definitely still an advantage for UFV in the mid and top lane, but some of the other roles starting to look a little bit more even. 1500 gold lead for the Lilia, and now 10,000 gold for the Jace. So, definitely going to be eyes on the mid jungle of Tufts, and I think with the Mordekaiser being able to isolate some of these fed targets, right, taking that taking the Rise out of the picture, even if they're not able to get the kill, does end up making the resulting fight way more advantageous for them. So definitely going to be all eyes on the top side of Tufts to make a difference in some of these later fights. On the flip side, though, 4 items now for the Rise. Force of Nature completed. Really, really powerful into the Mordekaiser and the Lilia. Really smart itemization, really. So definitely looking good for the side of UFV as usual, as has been the trend for this game. But aside from that, game is now a little bit slower. Rise hiding in a bush, trying to see if he can get Jace to walk up, but is not going to happen. The mid laner of Tufts playing respectfully. But actually, Garen going in onto the Mordekaiser, so much damage and so fast with the phase rush, but no kill to be had there. Even with 2.5 items, almost 3 items for the Garen. Ooh, a Lilting Lullaby coming out onto the Rise, but it's not gonna. I mean, Lilia just doesn't do any damage now that that item has been completed, and Lilia flashing over, but the team isn't there to follow, and it's just her against the 20 and Rise, and she's just going to die for it. And Garen now into the back line, able to grab a kill, and Tufts really botching that fight. It's definitely not what you want to see. The Abyssal Dive cancelled by the Garen Q, and the Tahm Kench also going down. Mordekaiser coming in around on the backside, but it's a 1v4 really. Does manage to get the Sejuani into the death row, flashing over, grabs the kill, gets out, but not looking good for Tufts, trading 3 for 1. And I mean, just a really mind-boggling flash from the Lilia. No one is there to follow, and the Rise can just kill her. So UFV is going to be happy with just the inhibitor and is just going to be able to leave, but this Infernal Dragon is going to spawn soon, and that's going to be Soul for UFV. And, I mean, Asura now coming out onto the Rise, is pulled back by the Claw, but Rise with the Phase Rush is just so fast. Jace able to continue the chase and does manage to pick up the kill. Janna now stuck with nowhere to run, and Tufts are just going to use this as an excuse to start the Baron. And this should be completely doable for them. Rise is the most fed member, and I don't imagine anyone, even Garen, as fed as he is going to be able to do that much damage. As I say, that does force out half of the health bar of the Tahm Kench, but actually, once again, Lilia going in almost alone. Isn't able to get the kill. Phase Dive, Abyssal Dive coming out. Garen dropped low. A bit of a split fight from the side of Tufts. Isolated on the backline, and this Mordekaiser pops the Death Realm, but it doesn't have any HP left. Isn't able to get the kill, but does give Jace the space to grab the kill on the Jan on the backside. Needs to back right now, honestly, since these super minions are headed into the base of Tufts, and the Rise respawns with TP up, is just going to be able to TP right back up in. And this might just be the game. Unless Jace can somehow clear the wave, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Rise should just be able to one-shot him if he ever wants to go in. Lilia now respawning as well, but it's an open Nexus, and unless Tufts can stop the push in any way, but Rise focused on the kills and not the Nexus. Ash Arrow coming out doesn't quite end up landing, but UFV are actually forced to leave here. I really do think that with how tanky this Rise is, if they had just kept hitting the Nexus, they might have just been able to end. And so that's going to be the game stalling out for a little bit longer. But it's Infernal Dragon should be going over to the side of UFV although neither side has a jungler, but with how fast they take this, it is just going to be them picking up the Infernal Soul. So still a win for UFV, 5,000 golden advantage now with the Infernal Soul, but I really do think that just should have been the game for them.
Heaven sent.
Puff's now desperately trying to defend against the super minion wave, and I mean, it's looking pretty tough for them now. They're fighting against Infernal Soul. If they can stall 5 more minutes and somehow pick up the Elder Dragon, that's definitely a win condition for them to get back into the game. But I mean, it's hard to imagine them surviving another 5 minutes with this game state. UFV now crowded around this Baron. It does look like they are going to try and start it up, clearing out vision, and yep, there they go. They do start up the Baron. Tufts a little bit preoccupied killing the Garen on the other side of the map. They do get the kill, but UFV might just be able to pick up the Garen. Yeah, the Baron instead. They do burst right through it, and maybe even pick up a kill on the top laner of their own. Mordekaiser does end up getting the ult onto the Janna just to survive a little bit longer, maybe able to pick up the kill. It is a 4v5 in favor of Tufts. Janna does get picked up, and so this is a very, very advantageous fight for Tufts. Although, wow, the Rise just does so much damage, is able to Realm Warp their team out, but, I mean, it's a trade of Baron and Baron and one member for the 3 of Tufts. Rise coming back, actually, is alone here, but the health bars from Tufts are just so low, and they're actually able to pick up the kills from the recalling Tufts members, and this Jace should go down as well. It's going to be an ace. Can Sejuani actually just end the game with the Baron buff? It should actually be possible. No one on the side of Tufts is able to respawn, and a really nice ace flashing over the wall even as the UFV members respawn, and that's just going to be the game. What looked like a really good fight from Tufts is just picked up after the Rise just ends up cleaning up those kills on the backside as we reach an even match state, 1-1 for either team. As we take a quick break before we get into draft for Game 3. back to Tufts versus UFV for game 3 as we head into draft. The teams are right now 1-1 as we see some of the first bans coming out. So it is the Scion and Gwen ban once again, and this time we do see the Sejuani ban coming out from Tufts. We will see Lilia. Oh, we also see the Lilia ban coming out. So, it looks like I guess that's something they were scared of from last game, and also Rise ban. From the side of Tufts, definitely was a problem last game, but this does leave open a lot of the picks that they've been banning before. Orianna is open, Jinx is open, Galio is open. So definitely all threats that we will have to see if any of them end up getting picked up. It is still gonna be the Ashe first picked. It does seem like both teams, prioritize this a lot. Um, we will see what Tufts wants to pick in response for the bot lane. As they are deliberating, but it is going to be the Jhin once again. Which is something they picked in game 1, and it's actually gonna be the Xin Zhao locked in for the jungle. So definitely a bit of a new look. We'll maybe setting up for a Galio pick so they can have that AP/AD diversity between mid and jungle, but we will see what they end up going for. Graves hover would be very interesting. Graves is definitely someone that's, I think, relatively strong actually, but not all that popular. So, and it is actually going to get locked in. I imagine that's jungle, although in theory it could also go top. But definitely a bit of a new pick. Braum locked in for support, so Ashe Braum bot lane is definitely going to be really scary. If Braun or Ashe, either one lands anything, it's really easy to just follow up, get that stun. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely spooky. And I think the other thing is it also lets Braum block a lot of those Jhin shots. It's actually going to be the Senna lock-in. Senna's definitely not a support that I think has seen a lot of action, but we will see how Tufts it ends up faring in Tufts' hands. Garen ban comes out once again, definitely really spooky from the last game. Even though they fell behind early, the Garen was really just able to tear it up in team fights, especially with the phase rush, um, just spinning all over the place. So definitely makes sense as a ban. Once again, the Alawi ban going to come out. UFE really targeting the top laner of Tufts here with these bans. I wonder if it's going to be the Pantheon ban again that we saw in game 1, that we saw in game 2, I mean. And it's going to be the Orianna ban coming out from side of UFE. So maybe Galio, since it made it past pick phase 1, maybe it's something they will want to look for phase 2. Actually gonna be the Ornn ban, so more top lane targeting. 4 out of the 5 of UFE's bans so far have been towards that top laner. So we'll see what they end up locking in this time. But I would not be surprised to see a Galio lock-in from Tufts. Even though UFE does have a lot of AD so far, it kind of forces them to lock in a AP mid laner. But it's not going to happen. Actually, it's going to be the Aatrox instead for the top laner of Tufts. Definitely something that we've seen them have a lot of success on in the past. So we'll see if they can make that happen once again. but it's actually gonna be the Malphite lock-in, maybe, potentially. Definitely really, really good into the immobile Jhin and Senna, so I do really like the Malphite, and it is going to get locked in, with the Sylas, actually. Not a ton of good ultis for Sylas to steal, Xin Zhao's alright, um, but aside from that, they're all pretty mediocre. But maybe just something that, player feels confident on. I do really like the Malphite. Jhin and Senna are going to have a horrible time in that later stage of the game. Hui as well, honestly, is not going to be too happy playing into Malphite ulti. So lock in for the mid lane, definitely a powerful pick, but the Malphite it's really just going to be all eyes on Malphite. Because almost every member of Tufts' team is immobile in some way or another. So um a little bit spooky for them, but we'll have to see how they play around it. Flashes are going to be very, very relevant in this game, and we will see what ends up happening as we head into another quick break for before we head into game 3. Hello everyone and welcome back to Tufts versus UFV game 3. Both teams are currently at 1-1 as we head on to Summoner's Rift. Well, thanks to note, we do see Senna has Grasp as actually Tufts 5-man stacking the spot lane bush. Maybe looking for some kind of cheese, but doesn't look like anything is going to come of it. And they should all just recall here. Although maybe we do end up seeing an early mid-brush ward as UFV also looks to invade, just to get the ward on the Raptors again. Does end up grabbing it, and this time no one on Tufts is around to see. So, once again, UFV will have a slight advantage in that respect. But overall, a relatively uneventful level 1. From that, it does look like it's just going to be a little bit of trading. Tufts once again is able to get that level 2 early, which means that they should be able to push in a little bit more than normal. Malphite really likes pressing the mastery, really likes emoting from what we saw last game as well. But overall, a very, very uneventful lane. We do see Tufts' bot lane get a small advantage, and just in health. In the bot lane, Braum forced to burn all of their potions already, which will be pretty big. But aside from that, no real advantages going out on either side. Troll's popping the Conqueror, no other. Wow, Silas going in actually. And the Graves is here as well. Maybe we'll be forced to flash. Not quite able to force it out actually. Really nice in being able to conserve the flash from the mid-laner of Tufts, but does drop low enough that they will be forced to recall. We do see a pretty big wave crashing into the Malphite's tower, and actually, even though the Aatrox is currently 4 CS in the advantage, that should be pretty quickly remedied, although Malphite not quite able to pick everything up under the tower. Again, Aatrox TPing back in with a longsword is able to more or less get the better of a trade Malphite, but any damage that Malphite takes will pretty much be nullified since they're going to be allowed to back and TP back in pretty much whenever they want. So Xin Zhao coming in for the first gank, but it does look like UFV received some information from that ward in the river, so is not quite able to. Ooh, actually, Graves coming in from the side, actually from an invade from into the Tufts jungle, just managed to pick up the kill after what looked like a pretty unfortunate trade for the mid laner of Tufts, and so far UFV's mid laner has seemed to be getting the advantage of them, as a little bit more trading comes out in that bot lane, but first blood once again going over to UFV. So, yeah, I mean, not much action happening. Aatrox, Malphite does end up TPing back, so gets a little bit of a health advantage up on this Aatrox. Has that Bramble Vest now as well. It's going to be pretty hard to deal with for that Aatrox, because, I mean, just the Bramble Vest is so much in terms of nullifying the Aatrox's healing, and also just provides so much armor in that early game, so definitely going to be a pretty big buy. But aside from that, no real advantages from... Oh wow, actually, Malphite just solo kills the Aatrox, uses the ulti from the bush and just has enough damage to kill. That's gonna be pretty big. Silas forced to flash out, but that Spiraling Despair does not do quite nearly enough damage to get the kill, as UFV pulls out to an early advantage, or an early lead, 1,000 gold now up. Yeah, I mean, that's a really big kill in the top lane as well, because this Malphite is only going to get scarier as the game goes on, since, I mean, the Tufts' team comp is just so immobile. Tufts starting up this dragon in exchange for the Void Grubs on the other side. A pretty standard trade as for either team. There's more trading forth. I do want to see the Xin Zhao make a little bit more in terms of proactive play than we saw in Game 1. I think it's been okay when they were on the Lilia, because Lilia is a champion that does like to farm compared to the Sejuani, but playing on the Xin Zhao, who is going to fall off towards that late game and who has such powerful early game dueling potential, it's definitely something where I would hope to see a little bit more action. On that note, we also did see in the bot lane, the UFV bot lane able to get a bit of a freeze going, so Tufts forced to stay and deal with that, but overall not too much going on once again. I think something that is pretty relevant is the pretty sizable CS lead that's been accrued in the mid lane. I think despite the early death and the assist going over to Silas, this Sway is still about 200 ish gold up on their laner. I think that's always going to be a little bit inevitable when playing melee interranged, but definitely still a relevant gold lead. And a CS advantage, but I think so far it actually really just has been mostly in the jungle. The Graves is now about 10 CS up, almost 1,000 gold lead on just the Graves alone, honestly. Ahead in CS and has been making more plays, as we see right now. Actually gets hit by lands the Ash Arrow onto the Jhin. Despite propping the barrier, is not able to get pretty much anything. Jhin just goes down, is forced to barrier, forced to flash as well, and all for just the arrow invested from the side of UFV, so definitely pretty spooky, as the Aatrox is now forced to ulti, but I mean, I don't think they're going to get much value out of this, especially with the Bramble Vest, but the auto lands, and the Malphite wins the 1v1. I mean, it really just was so much value out of that Bramble Vest, as the Malphite just nullifies all of the healing that this Aatrox gets. And I think maybe if they had popped the ulti earlier, it would have been they might have been able to win that. But a really nice flash from the Malphite and a second death going over to the top laner of Tufts is definitely not what you want to see. Silas now going in, lands the E, The Hui trying to walk through those minions to dodge a lot of the damage, but isn't quite able to do it. And now the Graves has arrived. Fear goes out, but only onto the Silas, and the Graves just does so much damage, picking up another kill. I mean, this Graves has just had so much impact in this game so far. And the Xin Zhao, you really can't say the same. I think the top jungle of Tufts has looked relatively weak this game. Xin Zhao looking to try and make some play, but there's a ward in that river brush, so gets spotted, isn't able to do anything. So far, looking a little bit dire for Tufts. They definitely want to get ahead in this early game, and they just really haven't been able to do that. As this Malphite starts up the Void Grubs, as UFV is able to pick up 6 this game, so not looking good. Not looking good so far. Ulti pop from the Jhin, as the Xin Zhao walks forward, looking to get the knock up onto the Ashe, doesn't quite land it, but should be able to get the kill anyhow. Forced to pop the ulti, but does end up grabbing the kill with that Senna ultimate. So it's going to be 1 kill over to... Oh, actually, TP going in, I mean... Malphite ulti hits onto 2, should just be able to get both kills here actually, does get rooted by the Jhin, so isn't going to be able to pick up that second kill, but Silas coming in from the flank means Xin Zhao also goes down, and that's more kills over to UFV, and this is definitely a far cry from anything we saw in Game 2. Tufts is kind of just getting obliterated. Graves now able to solo the, Dragon, grabs that second dragon, gets 6 grubs, and now with the Youmuu's Ghostblade completed, it's looking pretty dire for Tufts. 2,000 is the gold lead, but I imagine that's only going to get worse. Aatrox looking to make some kind of a play, but I mean, Braum comes in, gets the stun from the passive, and Aatrox just can't do anything. Being set so far behind, and now they're even going for a dive. Xin Zhao has no ulti, so can't survive the dive either. 2 more kills going over to UFV, and damage onto the mid tower, maybe even going to be able to pick it up with the Void Mites. Doesn't look like the tower itself is actually going to go down, but that's 3 plates, 4 gold funneled into the entire team of UFV, and it's an advantage across the map. I mean, oh my god! I mean, you just look at the jungle gold difference. It's 3,000 gold for the side of for that Graves. I mean, Graves has almost as much money as some of the Tufts members put together. So it's really not looking good for Tufts so far. This Graves is going to be a terror once we get later into the game, especially if he ends up building some of that crit. Malphite ends up dropping low, but still pushing forward actually onto the Squay, forced the ulti out to safety. Hui does grab the kill with that lightning bolt and grabs the root, but Graves now flashing forward just ends up picking up the kill in return. But I mean, a 1-for-1 trade at this stage of the game is honestly favorable for Tufts. Hui picks up shutdown and is definitely the member that is the most even. With that shutdown, maybe even going to be ahead of the Silas. So maybe Hui is going to be the saving grace for Tufts in this game, because so far nothing else is looking good. As Tufts is actually still trading pretty favorably. Jhin ulti popped, so is the Senna ulti, as the entire team is getting dropped really low. A nice snipe with the Jhin ulti, and TP from the Hui means that Tufts is just able to pick up 2 kills in the bot lane. Really, really nicely done, but it does mean that they are going to lose that top tower in exchange. So gold lead closed down a little bit, back to 2,000 gold, and this Jhin and Hui are going to be relatively strong still. So that's definitely a big win for them, but I mean, this Xin Zhao is just so weak now, and that's not what you want to see from your early game jungler. Connector now picked up, plus the plus actually a serrated Dirk, so maybe building more towards that, a kind of lethality gen that might end up being opportunity, which I think makes sense. I think outside of that Malphite, there's not really much armor on their team, and I don't think Jin is going to be the one to kill Malphite either way, especially if Hui can pick up a Liandry's Torment. That's going to be pretty instrumental in being able to deal damage to that Malphite. UFV now going in a little bit with the root from the Jin and also Xin Zhao showing their face, is going to be forced to back off. Another kill! Another solo kill from the Malphite onto this Aatrox, and the Aatrox is just not looking good this game. Is up in CS, but has 4 deaths now, 4 kills over to this Malphite, who is only going to get scarier. It's just the Hui who's going to be able to deal damage to the Malphite in the late game, and that Malphite ulti is just going to have so much value. Gypsy actually popped now, kind of trapping UFV's bot lane into this Baron pit. 4th shot also fired, I think just to deal a little bit more damage, and the Braum just gets rooted up and slain. Taken down by the Hui in the mid lane. More gold funneled into that Hui I think is really big. Hui kind of is just the saving grace of Tufts in this game so far. I think Jin definitely will be relevant, but I think it's going to be all eyes on Malphite either way, so will be a little bit hard for Jin to do anything. And actually forced a barrier now, forced a flash away too. Really nicely played, but actually Punch just goes way too far, takes a couple of tower shots and just dies to the tower. Another kill funneled into this Jin. Youmuu's Ghostblade now completed. Malphite actually also forced the flash out in the mid lane. So even though Graze is able to start up this Mountain Drake, which should end up happening, which, I mean, Mountain Drake on a Malphite is not what you want to see, especially if this Malphite builds a Force of Nature, which I honestly think makes a lot of sense this game, because no one else on the side of Tufts is dealing damage. This Jin is lethality, and is also a Jin, so not going to be shredding the tank. And yeah, it does look like a null Magic Mantle is going to get picked up, so it's going to be, after that Thorn Mail is just going to be full armor, full magic resist, I imagine, which I think makes a ton of sense. Malphite doesn't scale quite as hard with magic resistance as he does with armor, but it really is just going to be looking onto this way. And I honestly don't think I like the Seraphs here. I know there is a lot of dive from the side of UFV, but I think if Hui is locked up by pretty much anything from the side of UFV, he is going to die either way. I really would have liked to see a Liandry's into a Void Staff or something that can really help him just deal damage to the UFV members. But we'll see if this Seraph's Embrace ends up coming in handy. But so far, a little bit of a slowdown in the game as Tufts starts to claw their way back into things. I mean, Graves will be very, very happy just power farming, I think. As actually, the Silas lands the stolen Hui ultimate, lands a Spiraling Despair, and as I say that, the Seraph's Embrace actually coming right into clutch, but is not quite enough to save the Hui from Graves. Yeah, I mean, the Spiraling Despair getting the slow onto getting the slow means that they are able to just walk back in, as there is a bit more trading on this top side. Once again, Malphite positioning very, very aggressively. I mean, he's just so tanky, and Aatrox doesn't do any damage to him. I think Malphite just straight up wins the all-in at this point in the game, especially with that ulti. Although Aatrox is landing a good number of these sweet spots, but should not be able to get anything more than that. Even though they are both 2 items, the Malphite having so much armor and that plated steel cap is going to make a huge difference. Oh, a nice flank from the Silas. And the Asura does land. Kind of does almost all of the Hui's health. And now that Graves is here, I don't think there's anything Tufts can do to win this fight. Xin Zhao goes in, does do a ton of damage on Graves, as the Jin ulti doesn't quite manage to pick up the Graves, doesn't manage to pick up the fourth shot, and now that the kills have started going over for the side of UFV, they're just able to clean up everything, and even dive the tower for the ace. And that may be the last final nail in the coffin for the side of Tufts, because that's just so much standing gold being able to get picked up, and this Graves is now 8-0-4. So strong, does so much damage. Honestly, maybe this might even just be the game, because even once Tufts respawns, I don't imagine there's that much they can do to stop the push. Silas does, I think, hit an E they didn't quite mean to hit, but Tufts survives for yet another day, but this gold lead is pretty devastating. 8,000 gold, almost 9,000 gold in favor of UFV. I mean, this Graves has double the amount of gold as the Xin Zhao at this point. Has more gold than the jungle and support of Tufts put together. And, I mean, a 10,000 gold Malphite is definitely not something that this team wants to see at any point in the game. So, yeah, it's looking very, very bad for Tufts now. Three items on that Graves, starting to pick up their first crit items as well. Once that Infinity Edge is complete, Graves just one-shots Tufts' team members. And, I mean, there's not much that they can do. Xin Zhao hit by the Asura and is just going to die to the Silas. Like, yeah, I mean, he can pop the ulti, but it's not going to do much of anything. Unless Jin lands an incredible snipe here, it's not going to happen, which it isn't going to happen. Tufts is just going to have to give up this dragon as well. It's it's sole point over to the side of UFV, and if they manage to grab Mountain Soul, I mean, I think the game's already over, but it only gets worse from there. It's looking pretty dire for Tufts, to be honest. Maybe lands the fear, maybe able to pick up another kill here. A really nice deadly flourish from the Jin, secures the kill there. Does get Aatrox a little bit more gold, but that's not going to be enough for the side of Tufts, as that kill means that UFV can just get the Baron, and even when they're losing, they're winning, to be honest. Silas goes down, but it's in exchange for the Baron buff, and with that Baron buff, they should just be able to push forward and end the game. Another Asura landing, and I mean, Senna has no health. Yeah, I mean, Graves just absolutely annihilates her, and once he gets inside of that Xin Zhao ulti, I mean, Graves does so much damage. There's not really that much that Tufts can do. Wow. Yeah, I mean, pushing in now with 2 down from the side of Tufts, that should just be the game. I mean, UFV dotting their I's and crossing their T's, getting all 3 inhibitors. Jin ulti now popped, but I mean, they just don't do damage to this Malphite. As the Nexus towers go down, this should be UFV picking up the series, 2-1. As Tufts Nexus finally goes down. that's going to be the series in favor of UFV. Thank you everyone for watching.